engagements is wonderfully seen in a pair of portraits that are amongst my favorite objects in this exhibition. Here we see one Maharaja Pratap Singh of Orcha, a small kingdom in central India, in about the 1870s. Here he is, a fairly young man, seated in a traditional throne setting, very proud, defiant. He presents himself as a warrior, as a leader. You see that by the prominent place that the shield and sword have. Here are his attendants with the fly whisk and peacock throne. He's wearing a turban with the turban ornament. He looks away from the camera, and I love his beard and his mustache. They're, very, very powerful. Some 20 odd years later, we see him again. This time he is in a professional photographer's studio with a westernized backdrop and studio props. He's older, grayer, but he's also, from his dress, he is adapting and combining. He's wearing white gloves, elaborate cloak with medallions that are symbols of chivalric order that were issued by the monarch in England. But at the same time, he's still wearing his turban and turban ornament. He's wearing his necklaces, an ornamented belt and a sash around his waist, and he has his sword. But what strikes me most poignantly as a difference between these is the expression in his eyes. I mean, probably partly a factor of age, but he seems to have been through a lot, and maybe I'm projecting, but he's lost that fire in his eyes here. I mean, he's really become, I feel like he's become beaten down in some ways, and he has accommodated. And his beard is also very neatly trimmed and combed back. By about the early 1900s, we see a shift in patronage. Indian rulers continue to be patrons of the arts, and like they have for centuries before, but the patronage shifts now in more direct ways. So the intermediary of agents is gone, and now they are traveling to Europe themselves. And when they go there, they go to the fashion houses, such as Cartier or other clothing boutiques and all of that, and they go do their own shopping. And they give their own orders, and they go doing their own thing. They hire leading European architects and designers of their day to design their palaces. And what you see here are 4 drawings for the Maharaja and Maharani's bathrooms and sitting rooms at the Royal Palace of Jodhpur. And if anybody's been, it's a fantastic Art Deco palace, and the royal family still lives in it in one wing, and the rest of it is a luxury hotel. This necklace that you see here is one of Cartier's, is part of Cartier's single largest commission that they received from one patron. And this is one of 4 that the Maharaja of Patiala, a kingdom in northwestern India, commissioned. And this, in its original state, it had about nearly 3,000 diamonds in it, with a total carat weight of nearly 1,000 carats. It's enormous. But it also gives us a really nice picture and story of the rise and fall of Maharajas, because I think about 15 years ago or so, this necklace surfaced in an antique store in Europe. It was missing all of its stones, but only the platinum settings were intact. And a jewelry historian happened to see it and immediately recognized it because it was Cartier's most famous and best-known commission. And eventually Cartier bought it and reset this necklace with new stones, new diamonds and all of that. I mean, in its day, this yellow diamond was something called, apparently, a famous De Beers diamond that was the largest diamond of its day. It's about this big. Um, but this kind of traces the story of, as I said, the rise and fall of Maharajas, because by the 1930s, definitely, they started finding themselves in a very difficult position. On the one hand, they were never accepted into as rulers equal or on par to the British. And on the other hand, with the rising independence movements that were happening under the leadership of Mohandas Gandhi and Jinnah and others, they became representative of those who sold us out. And so the Maharajas, and by around partition, which is the independence of India and the formation of Pakistan and India in 1947, there were nearly 600 independent kingdoms of varying sizes. And so they banded together and formed a legislative body called the Chamber of Princes in about 1924. And in order to have a voice in the upcoming, I mean, it was on the horizon, it was a matter of time about independence from the British. So they participated in all of those discussions. And when the decision was made for Great Britain to step away and India to become independent, the Maharajas willingly gave up all of their territories into the nation states of India or Pakistan, depending on where their kingdoms fell. And in return, they got a privy purse or an allowance from the state, so that they could maintain their lifestyles, because historically, Maharajas gained their wealth from taxation revenue, just like everyone else. So once that taxation revenue was gone, they needed to still support themselves. So they got allowance from the state. But in 1971, this allowance was revoked by Indira Gandhi. And they were now left on their own to maintain themselves. And many of them were at a loss. Some became impoverished, and who knows what happened to them. Others sought alternate careers. Today, Maharajas are active in military careers. Some have political careers in India and Pakistan. Others became entrepreneurs and businessmen. Some opened up their palaces to become heritage hotels. Others opened up their private collections as public museums. Some have started philanthropic and charitable institutions. Some have given up their territories to become national state parks. But it was a moment of transition for them. And it is in this moment where we see that objects such as these Cartier necklaces and a whole host of other objects such as watches and cigarette cases and bracelets and necklaces and all these kinds of things start appearing on the art market. Because in my guess, it was probably the quickest and the most discreet way of having a cash inflow. And so over the years, Cartier in particular has been actively buying off all these things that show up on the market, because they kept very extensive records about and know exactly who they sold what to. So that's the story behind this necklace. And I close this part of my presentation with the aspect that was most surprising to me when I first saw the show in London. I mean, when I heard the word Maharaja, I was expecting the usual kind of things, beautiful paintings, gorgeous textiles, some jewelry. But what I was not expecting was this whole display of amazing Art Deco furniture. And these were all made, this ensemble comes from a very dashing Maharaja of his day, Yashwantrao Holkar of the Kingdom of Indore, and who was a huge patron of the arts. And what I don't have here are a series of photographs that were taken of him and his wife, the Queen, by the American avant-garde photographer Man Ray, and who they met while they were all vacationing in Paris, or southern France. And Man Ray writes that he met this very charming couple at a party, and he wanted to photograph them. They sat for a few photographs, but they were formal, and then some jazz music started to play, and the couple got up and started to dance, and that's when he got his most amazing photographs of him. And it apparently Cole Porter dedicated his song "Let's Misbehave" to Yashwant Rao's wife. So they were jet setters by the 1920s. Many of the Maharajas and their queens, the Maharanis, were leading fashion figures in the international social scene. So widely traveled in Europe. In fact, Yashwant Rao even has a house in California, or had a house in California. So they maintained multiple residences. They were very international in their day. So with that, I conclude this part of this exhibition, and in the next 10 minutes that I have, I will quickly zip through the process that goes behind putting exhibitions. And I'll just show you some installation shots. So before galleries start looking like this is what they look like. Workspaces with lots of carts and equipment of all kinds. Tables with files and folders and work lights and all kinds of messy stuff. And it's hard to see here, but there are drill machines and moving blankets. And a fun story and a great part of the project and challenge that we had to deal with was this gorgeous silver carriage that is in our space. And this is just a detail of that carriage. It's quite stunning. Stunning as it is and as desirable as it was for us to have it, we had a minor problem. It was too big to fit into the freight elevator, and it was too big to get through the main doors because the Asian Art Museum was the public library, and it was not meant to bring in big objects. So we had to figure out a alternate way to get it into the building. Sorry. Oh, goodness. Okay. So right behind here, what you don't see in this image is a wall of windows. And here we are on the upper floor, and the museum's loading dock is downstairs. So we had to get a crane, and the crate for the carriage is right here. It was a process that started at 4 a.m. to start removing these windows, to haul this 5,000-pound crate through the window, and it turned out to be a bit of a tight fit. A few inches bigger, and we would have had a serious problem. And because the carriage has textiles in it, silk textiles that when exposed to light, which we get a lot of through these windows, and the textiles would fade, we had to put light protective screen. So here is 4 guys trying to put up this 20-some foot tall banner. And here is the crane, the carriage of the crate, and just made with stoppers to make sure it doesn't roll off and go places it shouldn't. And then it's silver, which tarnishes. And so a conservator sat off and on for an entire week with her Q-tips and polished this whole thing. Because as you can see, there is a lot of high relief decoration, lots of crevices, and the only way to get in through the crevices is the Q-tip. And she used rags, like cloth, wherever the surfaces could allow, but it was a painstaking process. And then I showed you images of throne room ensemble, and again, to set up that case and to get all of these things in here, you can see people crawling all over the place. And here is what it looks when it's all cleaned up. I also briefly showed you a bridal costume, which is beautiful, but heavy, heavy, heavy. The stole alone, as you can see, or it's kind of hard to see, but there are 8 people including big guys, who had to lift this stole alone on its roller to drape over the mannequin's shoulder and to get it in. And it took two people an entire day to just arrange the whole the the stole in a way that the weight of that material could be supported with all these what we call sausages. They're like foam sausages that had to be very strategically placed so that all of the weight of this embroidered textile would be evenly distributed. And here's what it looks like. Oh, forklifts. Those were another thing. This team of people told me, oh, we need Big Joe for this. And I'm like, who's Big Joe? I've been working here for 3 weeks and I never met any guy called Big Joe. Well, Big Joe turned out to be the forklift. It's called Big Joe. So these enormous paintings had to be forklifted up and then supported with people climbing up on ladders, making sure it doesn't tip on the top and getting it in. And here it is installed. And then we had this 25-foot long painting that, again, did not fit through anything, stretched. So it had to be rolled on this, on a roller, had to be unrolled in the gallery. Its frame had to be assembled in the gallery. It then had to be stretched on the frame and installed. And it took 11 people to do that. And you can see all of them down here and up there. So it was, and here it is. And so exhibitions, it took us a month to install this thing. A month from the time when we deinstalled our last exhibition, gutted out the galleries, put up new temporary walls, painted, let the paint off gas before we could put objects in there, brought the cases in, cleaned plexi, unpacked objects, condition checked them to make sure that they still were what they look like when they're packed so that there's been no damage in shipping, and then installing them one at a time. And cleaning up galleries, putting up labels, making sure all the videos worked, and then pleasing to see that it all looks like it was supposed to. We also had an ancillary project that came out of this, and we wanted to have some other element that would be fun and that would kind of be more contemporary. And in that process, we engaged the assistance of a contemporary artist. He's a graphic artist who works at Pixar. And he's of Indian origin, Sanjay Patel, and who's done work on illustrating Hindu mythology and other subjects from Hindu literature. And we thought he would be a great fit to come up and do something for us for the exterior of the building. Anyhow, he came back with an amazing body of work that we decided that we had to use, not just for the outside, but in other parts of the building. So he pulled together this amazing mural for us, and here is Earl, who's putting up this vinyl. And here is that whole thing. So he started studying the catalog of the Maharaja exhibition, looked at all the paintings and all of the objects in the show, and then came up with his own interpretation of the themes. And just to show you some people who were behind this, that's the artist I just mentioned, Sanjay. Here is the curator of from London, the Victoria and Albert Museum, who conceived of the show, and a princess from one of the ruling families in India came to San Francisco for the opening of the exhibition, and that's the Princess of Baroda. And then we took Sanjay Patel's engagement with us. It just became an organic thing, and one project led to another. And here's what I mean by when he studied art from the exhibition to create his own thing. This image of Sanjay's version of Maharaja is what we're using for much of the publicity and advertising program for the exhibition. So you might see this as street pole banners. I think there are flyers outside, and bus sides have the elephant procession. And here it is on the outside of the building. His process was fantastic because before he goes on to scanning into these digital outputs, he actually is an amazing draftsman, and he loves to draw, and he had this really enormous number of sketches and works in progress that he pulled together before he came up with the final designs that I just showed you. And we loved that as much as we did the final work. So we took his sketches and enlarged them and put them up on the walls in the museum. And then, as I said, the project developed organically. And what you're seeing here is a proposal that he submitted for another gallery in the museum. So this is on our second floor. The main exhibition is on the ground floor, where we wanted to, I was very interested in his process, as I already said that, and the way he responds to historical art in order to create his new works. And I thought it would be a fun idea to have his works in dialogue with the sculpture and paintings that are in the museum on the same or similar subjects. So here we have a lot of digital art along with objects from the museum's collection, and there are just some more installation shots of that display. It's something very different from what the museum has done before. It's a splash